Hello and welcome to Tracking Trump on Decoder. We're back with another episode. I'm Nidhi Razdan. Well, we are nearly halfway through 2025 and the world has already grappled with the Russia-Ukraine war, Israel's war in Gaza, the India-Pakistan near war, and now the Israel-Iran conflict that is threatening to blow up into a full-scale war very soon. With Tel Aviv and Tehran exchanging missile strikes for days now, all eyes are on US President Donald Trump, who has indicated that America is likely to join Israel in this fight. In posts on his social media platform, Trump has called for Iran's unconditional surrender and has even talked about killing Iran's supreme leader, though he says they won't do that for now. In fact, in the latest update, Iran's supreme leader has said that if the US does in fact join this war, then there will be irreparable damage if it does so. Now, Israel's strikes against Iran have been criticized by many as an unnecessary act of aggression and provocation, but Israel says this was a preemptive strike since Iran was planning to develop nuclear weapons imminently. Now, Iran has denied this, saying that it is enriching uranium for civil nuclear use. What is mystifying, however, is Trump's own position. From saying that America will not get involved in any wars to now possibly joining one, he has done quite a U-turn. And to top it all off, he's also having lunch in the White House today with Pakistan's army chief. And that's just weeks after the Pahalgam massacre. Joining us on the program today, we have Ambassador Singh with us. He was India's ambassador to Iran in the 2000s and has been one of India's finest diplomats. Michael Kugelman, Senior Fellow with the Asia Pacific Foundation, joins us from Washington, D.C. And Dr. Waiel, Awwad, Senior Journalist and expert on West Asia or the Middle East, depending where you are. He's joining us from Delhi this evening. Thank you very much to all of you for being with us. Ambassador Singh, to you first. Does it now look imminent that America is going to be part of Israel's war on Iran? And is it just a matter of time?
Well, I think so, especially when you see Trump, he's gone from Israel to saying we and hosting the Pakistani army chief, which is completely unprecedented because no other army chief, except when they were presidents of Pakistan, were ever hosted by an American president. And that too at a lunch and a private lunch. So he's obviously, it means one of two things. I tweeted today and that's going around. One is that he's already made up his mind and he wants the Pakistani army on board. You see, because they realize that if they attack, if the Americans jump in and use their bunker busters, then Iran will hit back at the American facilities in the Gulf. So they need some area outside Gulf which can be used for their army, for their planes, for their helicopters, or even their Gulf allies may want to ship some of their planes there. So Pakistan becomes critical to any such thing, and especially if Americans are sending troops in, etc., or special operations, they could go across the Balochistan border. The fact that he is hosting him either means that or that he is testing it out, of which there's less of a chance because he's already had his national security meeting. He's spoken to the Israeli Prime Minister and he's not backed off since then. And the Israeli Prime Minister, CNN has put together a number of old tapes. From 96, Netanyahu has been saying that Iran is close to a bomb. And now we are talking about almost 30 years. And even the IAEA has said that there is no proof that they're moving towards a bomb, creating a bomb. So it seems he's made up his mind. And when he was told that your intelligence chief said that there is no proof of Iranians moving towards a bomb, he said, no, I don't care what she said. So he's made up his mind. It seems like that.
And he also didn't include her, in fact, in a crucial meeting to look at this matter as well. Michael Kugelman, do you agree with Ambassador Singh on his assessment that it's really imminent now that America will get involved in this? And your reading of Asim Munir's meeting, this unprecedented meeting at the White House, is it more to do with Iran? And this is just my own guess here that President Trump and Prime Minister Modi spoke over the phone today, and we saw in the readout from the Indian side that they said that President Trump, asked him to visit the US, since he was already in North America, and Mr. Modi said, he can't because he's on his way to Croatia. But I do wonder whether he had dreams of getting the two men to meet in DC.
Yeah, thanks, Nidhi, for having me. To the first question about the war and Trump's position on it, I think the situation that Trump finds himself in now is the very situation that he has most wanted to avoid since he became president, and that's being in a position where he'll need to make a call about whether the U.S. joins a war. I would argue that the situation in the South China Sea and Taiwan had been more foremost on Trump's mind. He would not have wanted to be in a position where China were to invade Taiwan, and he'd have to make a decision as to what the U.S. does. But now we're talking about the Middle East. I don't think he wanted Israel to attack Iran. I don't think that he would want the U.S. to join the war militarily. But the pressure from Israel is increasing, and given the nature of the special relationship between the U.S. and Israel, it might be hard for him to just deflect that pressure. There are also domestic political considerations to keep in mind, which is something that Trump would always be thinking about. Many of his members of his base would not want the U.S. Getting involved in other countries' wars. So it's tough to say. I don't necessarily think that there's an imminent, it's imminent, the idea of the U.S. Joining this conflict militarily, but certainly it could be more difficult for Trump to essentially shrug off that pressure from the Israelis. To your question about Asim Munir, there's a lot that we don't know about Munir's visit here. We don't know who invited him. We don't know if his meeting with Trump was set well in advance or if it's more recent once the war broke out. So it's sort of hard to answer the question. But clearly, President Trump will want to size up Munir's position and thinking on Iran. Munir, of course, was in Iran not too long ago, a few weeks ago, as part of a large Pakistani delegation. Munir met with several senior Iranian officials, several of whom are now dead. So I think that, and also, Trump must know, or he was told, that Pakistan shares a border with Iran, and he might think that there could be some use in talking to Munir, get a sense as to what type of leverage Pakistan might have over Iran, whether Pakistan might be able to be helpful to an extent. But I don't think that the war will be the only thing that the two men talk about. There are plenty of other issues, whether you're talking, personal interest, very strong interest of the president, cryptocurrencies, critical minerals, things like that. So, they'll talk about various things, but clearly the war will be the main issue that drives the discussion.
Dr. Awwad, what is your sense of where this is headed, and what are the implications of this if America gets involved? And from what I understand, Israel really does need America to get involved and use what Ambassador K.C. Singh referred to, its bunker buster bombs that only it has, that can actually target Iran's deepest nuclear facility in Fordo. And Israel doesn't have those capabilities. So if the US was to get involved, what are the potential risks we're looking at for the world?
Well, thank you for having me, Nidhi, and a greeting to you and to my colleagues on the panel. And in fact, I wonder why would America, first of all, go for a war? Let's ask this question. Is there any reason for going for a war for America or for Israel to attack a sovereign state when the discussion on a peaceful program has been on for years, and they have pulled out already from 2015 deal, which is the 5+1 with the American and the Western world, and they have agreed that everybody, even the IAEA, agrees on this, that Iran can never have a nuclear bomb as long as this deal was in place. But yet, 2018, President Trump pulled out of the deal, and then that's one of his manifesto to please Netanyahu. And again, he goes in this time and he's saying, I'm better than Biden. I can bring a better deal on the table, or Obama. So they wanted to make more deal for Iranian of surrendering. So we in the Arab world don't see Israel doing any work without the behest or the blessing of the United States. Israel may start the war, but we all know that it is in the hand of Israel, United States, to start a peaceful discussion or to end any kind of a war that Israel has been starting it. And I think that we have noticed throughout history, it's a regime change policy started in Afghanistan till Libya, and we have noticed that the American using their sort of changing regime by force, which was a policy followed up. And when Trump came to power, he has criticized the his president predecessors, that they're following the policy of regime change. And he wanted to have a peaceful solution to the crisis. But here you go. You're using the cowboy culture of putting a pressure, diplomatic pressure, using force. He put Iranian on the discussion with them, like Iran should come to the table negotiating. A sixth round of talk was scheduled on Sunday between the Iranian officials and the American in Muscat in Oman. And suddenly, Netanyahu jumped the gun and do a preemptive strike and a sovereign nation, which is a violation of the United Nations Charter and even the Geneva Convention, which prohibit any country to attack a nuclear site of the other country. So there we are heading for a regional war where America will have the maximum suffering. It's not removing Iran, because it is only Iran left in West Asia to conquer the whole global trade from Strait of Hormuz to the Red Sea to the Mediterranean Sea.
So you're saying you believe the end game is regime change. Ambassador K.C. Singh, is that what the end game is? Was there a hint of that when President Trump talked about Iran's supreme leader? We know where he is, but we're not going to kill him for now, in brackets. So is that once again what the Americans are looking at?
No, that's what Netanyahu is marketing. He's been saying it openly, that there should be a regime change, and this is the best opportunity with Hezbollah down, with Hamas completely trapped, with a regime change in Syria. So they feel this is the best opportunity to go after the Iranian regime. But I think what's going to happen is that what they don't realize is that Iran, with its 2,500-year-old history, starting with the Achaemenid Empire, they have a sense of history, and Shia faith has a sense of sacrifice and martyrdom. And when you put pressure on them, they'll all fall in line behind the leadership, because they're seeing it as an attack on their religion and on the country and not on the regime. And I think that is a difference that they don't understand. And President Trump thinks is like a business deal. You put pressure, use leverage, other person will come to the table. But in some instances, when you're dealing with countries, there is sense of history, sense of culture, sense of religion that they have, and therefore pressure can be counterproductive. And I think that's what's happening in the present case. And the Iranians have said, I think what may bring Trump into it is that Netanyahu is saying that, look, I've destroyed most of the nuclear program of Iran, which was above ground, but I can't go after Fordo. And so he will say that you take out Fordo and then probably we can have ceasefire. But the minute Americans go after Fordo, I think Iranians are committed to then retaliating against the American bases, against American vessels. Then it broadens it. And they've also said they will be shutting down the, all the ships going from Gulf outside. Strait of Hormuz. And they shut it down. And even if this goes on for another week or 10 years, the oil will go to $150, $200. It'll start affecting every country and even America. So beyond a stage, and also we don't know, I think Israel has got censorship. We are getting pictures. We are not getting any satellite pictures. There's a lot of damage that the Iranian missiles have done to Israel. Haifa port and certain buildings. So their power generation, etc. Iran's a much larger country. It takes many more bombs to really destabilize it. So we don't know. Israel may be desperate, saying that you come in and end it, because we can't carry on much longer like this. Incidentally, one estimate is costing them $250 million a day by just firing those missiles to counter the Iranian missiles.
Michael Kugelman, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about how this is playing out domestically in the US, which you alluded to in your first answer. And this is very important for us to understand here because, as I said in my introduction, also his election campaign was also centered around this theme that we're not going to be part of wars that are not ours, right? And here he is possibly going to do a complete U-turn on that. And I understand that his sort of Republican base, even his own party, is very badly divided on this approach. So it's a huge political gamble for him if he wades into this war. How is he going to justify it?
So there's one key factor to put out here that gets to perceptions, U.S. perceptions of Iran. I would argue that for decades, going back to 79, there has always been a significant amount of contempt evinced by Washington and by Americans more broadly toward Iran. I would argue that there's even a level of demonization. And if you look at Trump himself, he's taken very unorthodox positions toward traditional U.S. rivals, whether we're talking about North Korea. He, of course, had that meeting with the North Korean leader during his first term. Russia, of course, he's shown some sympathies for Putin and so on. But with Iran, he's always been consistent and in step with other leaders in America across the political spectrum, not wanting to make many concessions to Iran at all. So in that sense, perhaps Trump might feel that given public sentiment in Washington toward Iran, and particularly toward the regime, the Iranian regime, that this might be the time to side with Israel in a war against Iran. So I think that's an important factor to put out there. But I come back to something that I believe both of your other guests noted, and I think this is really important in terms of Trump's style. He likes to use pressure tactics, right? So if we point to all these signals that suggest that maybe Trump wants to join Israel in this war, all the messaging that's come from the White House in recent days about how Trump has again and again said that Iran could not have a nuclear weapon, all this messaging that might seem like it's meant to make people think that Trump is ready to have the U.S. join Israel in this war might be more of a pressure tactic to try to compel the Iranians to be willing to talk. We've seen how Trump did this on trade policy with the reciprocal tariff policy. That was a pressure tactic to get countries to do what he wants them to do: buy more American goods, lower tariffs, and so on. Now, if this is a pressure tactic on the part of Trump in this case, and it might be, I think the question is, would Iran actually be receptive to that? More importantly, would Israel be receptive to some type of negotiation? My sense is that Israel, when it has an objective during a war, it pursues that objective until it meets it. And we look at what it's trying to do in Gaza. It said it's going to continue that assault until Hamas is destroyed. I think it's sort of like a contradiction of terms in a sense, but it's going to be a very difficult decision for Trump one way or the other.
That is an interesting point. Dr. Awwad, do you agree with Michael Kugelman? Could this be a pressure tactic? And more importantly, do you think Iran would come under pressure with all the threats that have been put out on the table? We saw the Ayatollah very strongly say that there will be consequences, and he's given a very fiery speech just a few hours ago. But behind the scenes, is there still room for negotiation, for talks?
Nidhi, I believe Michael put straightforward that the American president, for sure, I agree on his part, because the American president, he is for a negotiator and a dealer rather than going for a war, for sure. But when it comes to Israel, the unfortunate part, and Michael will be correcting me if I am wrong on this, I mean, if we are talking of the Iranian nuclear deal, an Iranian nuclear program, let us put it straightforward. From 1957 to 1979, it was the American who has been promoting the nuclear use of Iran for civilian use. And it was only after toppling a democratically elected government, Mossadegh, in 1953, that they brought the Shah of Iran, that they started the nuclear program with Iran. And it continued till they have signed the 1964, the NPT. And after that, the Shah wanted to have 10 nuclear reactor. America sold him 5 megawatt Bushehr nuclear reactor, then followed by Germany, France, and England. And after that, till 1979, the program was fully fledged under the American supervision. The moment the revolution took over and Iranian Khomeini came, immediately they have halted the program. They give all the data of Bushehr reactor to Saddam Hussein, who bombed it, who destroyed it. And Iran went again after 1979, the 90s, with Russia, with China, and Pakistan. And now you speak of them that they had a good intention of having a nuclear. When you were giving them and supporting them and extracting the money, they were good for use. Like you talk of a good terrorist and a bad terrorist. This is the situation of Iran. If you scratch the hand of an Iranian, you will find US is written under their skin, because they had a very strong relation during the Shah time, and they had a very close relation with the CIA quietly, and the Mossad very active inside Iran. I know it, and because I have traveled extensively to Iran, and I understand the culture of the Iranian people. The American policy, unfortunately, has been never followed the American interest in the region. If you look at the commonality between the United States and Iran, I think they had more to join hand together. But because of Israel, is America suffering? Because Israel, the day Israel was created, Egypt was taken out as the American allies, the trusted ally. Then Iran is the trusted ally of the United States, and they removed it. So I think the American policy, there is a conflict between the deep state and Trump, who wanted to have peaceful resolution on the crisis, but you cannot give a free hand to Israel to go and attack a sovereign nation. This is the take. This is international law. We may like to isolate Iran because of their closeness to Russia and to China, but that doesn't give you the upper hand to bring Iran back into your fold by disintegrating the country. That is my
Right.
problem. And these are the talks of the Arab world rather than being my own view, which I also endorse it.
Ambassador KC Singh, I just wanted to ask you one final question, which is on your takeaway from the Trump-Modi phone call today, which lasted for about 35 minutes, in which I think it's the first time we've actually heard the Prime Minister directly telling President Trump that there is no room for third-party mediation on Kashmir. The Ministry of External Affairs, the Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri, also telling the media that there was no discussion on trade related to Operation Sindoor. So it's the first time at that level we have seen this come out openly. What do you read of this phone call?
I think the Prime Minister and the Indian government were embarrassed because he went all the way to Canada and he thought he'll have a meeting with Trump to get over the allegation which is floating around that there was mediation. The only way to get over that was that you have a friendly meeting with Trump, and he comes out of it and he gets Trump to say something that yes, it's for India and Pakistan to sort it out. But Trump left before Prime Minister arrived there. Trump also cancelled his meeting with the Mexican president, with Zelensky, with everybody, and he just went back. So now, on top of that, he hosted that lunch. You remember when initially the news came out that Pakistan Army chief was invited for the parade, Indians expressed their unhappiness over it. Then the Americans said, no, we've not invited him. He's just here. But he was on a week-long visit. He had not gone there as a tourist. And the CENTCOM chief saying very positive things about him, of how Pakistan has helped in counterterrorism. And now Trump inviting him for a lunch. I think that was the ultimate signal to India that when you're asking Indian Prime Minister to come there, you are equating Prime Minister of India with the army chief, whose link to Pahalgam can't be ruled out because he's been a former DG ISI and he's in charge of ISI now. So, I mean, this is typical Trump who doesn't understand the implications of things like this because he's just seeing that maybe I can put them together and so on and so forth. So I think India, this is probably the first time that Prime Minister and Trump were not on the same page, and where India has kind of taken a stand. I don't know how Trump will take it, but this had to be done because the optics would have been really bad for Prime Minister to go to Washington.
Absolutely. Well, there is so much to unpack and, it's still a developing story. Thank you very much to all of you for joining us, giving us some sense of what the implications of a US involvement in this Israel-Iran conflict could be. The Pakistan angle, and of course, is the new factor in all of this. Let's see how all of it plays out. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.
And we'll see you again on Tracking Trump next week. Do join us then. Thank you, guys.